Settle into the quiet of the night now, and let the world outside soften its edges. We journey to feudal Japan, not to the roar of armies, but to the silent soul of a solitary swordsman. Slowly, Miyamoto Musashi. His name echoes with conflict, but his truest legacy is one of contemplation, of stillness in motion. Tonight, we seek to understand the man who wandered the land for decades, seeking not opponents, but mastery. He found his wisdom in the rustle of the wind, the flow of the water, and the profound discipline of walking alone. This is the philosophy of the strategist, the silent path to the void. Let the ambient sounds of ancient Japan carry you now, as we begin to learn Musashi while we sleep. Musashi's early years are shaped by silence. His mother dies while he is still small. His father, rigid and distant, becomes the only figure of authority. In the house, there is no laughter, no softness, only the sound of wooden swords striking against posts. Again and again. And again, some say Musashi trained him from the moment he could stand. Others say Musashi watched in secret, mimicking the movements he saw. Both stories speak of the same child, a boy built from discipline, shaped by solitude, carved by duty. His hands become calloused before they become steady. His eyes grow sharp before they grow kind. He learns early that the world does not wait for the weak, that a blade does not forgive hesitation, that life, like combat, is a rhythm, and either you learn its timing or you fall beneath it. At night, while villagers sleep, the boy sits awake. He listens to the night insects hum in the grass. He watches the moonlight stretch across the floor, and he wonders even then about strength. Not the loud kind, not the violent kind, but the quiet strength that lives in patience, in awareness, in breath, a strength found not in striking, but in waiting. The river flows slow and heavy that morning. Mist hovers above the surface like a veil, and on the dirt path near the village of Hirafuku, a child stands facing a grown samurai. Musashi is 13, tall, broad, unpolished, arrogant, some whisper, fearless, others insist. The samurai he faces, Arima Kihei, is a trained warrior of the Shintoru, a man who has killed before, a man who carries a real sword. Musashi carries only a wooden stave. A crowd forms. Villagers gather at safe distance, murmuring about the foolishness of youth. But Musashi does not hear them. He hears only his heartbeat, slow, steady, grounding him. He sees only his opponent, balanced, poised, dangerous. The samurai steps forward with confidence. Musashi steps forward with hunger. When the strike comes, it is sudden. A flash of steel in the morning light. Musashi does not step back. He does not flinch. He charges forward like a storm breaking open, closing the distance before Kihei can adjust his weight. The wooden stave cracks against the samurai's ribs, neck, skull, when it ends. Kihei lies on the ground, motionless. The villagers stare in disbelief, and Musashi stands alone, breathing hard, hands shaking, not with fear, but with the shock of victory. He has killed a man. At 13, the river keeps flowing. The mist keeps drifting. Life does not pause to acknowledge what has changed, but something inside him has shifted forever. Asterisk, soon after, Musashi leaves home. Some say he runs away. Others say he is cast out. But whichever story is true, the result is the same. He becomes ronin, a warrior without a master, a wanderer bound not by loyalty to a lord, but by loyalty to the path itself. He walks through forests and mountain passes, sleeps under trees and temple roofs, trains his body relentlessly, sharpens his senses, studies the movement of animals, the flow of water, the patterns of clouds. He watches how a branch bends without breaking, how a hawk circles before diving, how small streams carve mountains over centuries, not by force, but by persistence, without realizing it. He begins to understand the truth of all great warriors. Nature is the first and greatest teacher. Asterisk, asterisk, the Japan Musashi walks through is not peaceful. It is the final edge of the Sengoku era, the age of endless warfare, shifting alliances and ambition without restraint. Samurai march beneath banners soaked in blood. Castles burn. Villages vanish. Lords rise and fall within seasons. Amid this chaos, a young warrior's skill does not go unnoticed. Musashi joins the forces of the Ashi. He fights at Sekigahara, one of the greatest battles in Japanese history. He witnesses death in waves. The screams, the smoke, the steel flashing through dust-filled air, the ground turning soft beneath the fallen. And in this storm of bodies and banners, something inside him hardens. Not a love for battle, but a detachment from it, a realization. War is not glory. It is not honor. It is not poetry. It is simply motion, a rhythm of survival, a test of clarity in chaos. Musashi walks off the battlefield, a survivor, but also a seeker. He is beginning to sense that true mastery lies beyond killing, deeper than technique, beyond the reach of skill alone. Something more ancient, more elemental, a silence that lives beneath conflict. Asterisk, asterisk, the years that follow are filled with duels. Duel after duel after duel. 60 victories, no defeats. He fights samurai of every school, every style, every rank. He defeats the students of the Yoshioka school, then their masters, then their final heir. Each duel pushes him deeper into the truth of combat. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. And through this relentless testing, an idea begins to form. The sword is not the path. The technique is not the path. The stance, the guard, the angle of the wrist. None of these are the path. The path is awareness. The path is timing. The path is the mind that moves before the body. The path is no path, no stylistic attachment. He begins to think. No fixed form, no predetermined rhythm. Adapt, shift, flow. He begins to call this insight Nitten Ichiru, to heavens as one, a style that uses two swords, but is rooted in one mind, a way that has no way. Asterisk, as Musashi's victories grow, so does his distance from other men. People fear him, students admire him, rivals hate him, lords try to recruit him, but none truly understand him. He wanders from town to town like a restless spirit. He avoids comfort, avoids attachment, avoids ease. He sleeps on floors, in caves, under trees. He keeps his body lean, his senses sharp. At night, he trains alone beneath the moon. The wind rustling through the grass becomes his companion. The echo of his breath becomes his only teacher. He begins to realize something profound, Man cannot master the world until he masters himself. And he cannot master himself until he abandons the self entirely. This thought lingers. In the quiet hours before dawn, it repeats. Like a cone, like a whisper from the universe. Asterisk, everything in Musashi's life seems to lead toward this moment. The year is 1612. The opponent is Sasaki Kajiro, the demon of the West, master of the Nodashi. Undefeated like Musashi, famous for the technique called the turning swallow cut. The duel takes place on a remote beach at low tide. Waves whisper against the shore. Seabirds glide overhead. Musashi arrives late. Deliberately, calmly, Kajiro burns with anger. But anger is a blade with no handle, a weapon that wounds the wielder first. Musashi carries only a wooden oar, carved during the boat ride. He faces a master with a real blade, and he does not tremble. Their eyes meet. A gust of wind lifts the sand. The world holds its breath. Then a single exchange. A blur of motion. To figures. One strike, Kajiro falls. The beach grows silent. Musashi looks out at the sea, the waves rolling in and out, and realizes victory feels empty. Now begins the true path. Asterisk, after Gunru Musashi stops seeking duels, stops chasing rivals, stops proving himself. He begins to wander not as a warrior, but as a pilgrim. He visits temples, hermits, monks, painters, poets. He studies Zen, meditates in forests, paints with the same precision he once brought to the blade, writes poetry, teaches students not how to fight, but how to see, how to sense intention, how to breathe without thought, how to let the mind settle like dust after a storm. He begins to understand. The ultimate warrior is the one who has no need to fight. Asterisk, as night falls over Japan once more, Musashi sits beneath a pine tree, listening to the wind move through its needles. There, in the quiet darkness, he begins shaping the thoughts that will one day become the Book of Five Rings, the work that will define his legacy. But that is only the beginning. His teachings, his final years, his philosophies of emptiness, timing, strategy, and stillness, all await us in the next chapters. For now, we rest with him in the dark. The fire low, the mountain wind cold, the silence deep. This is where Musashi's path of self-mastery truly begins. The road stretches out before him like an endless ribbon of dust and wind. After the duel on Ganryu Island, Musashi does not celebrate, does not boast, does not remain to accept praise or fear. He simply leaves. The morning tide washes Kajiro's footprints from the sand. The world erases the duel as if it were a dream. And Musashi walks on, heading toward the mountains, toward solitude, towards something undefined, something he cannot yet name. The sky above is pale. A faint mist clings to the low hills. Birdsong echoes across the valley. The world feels softer now, quieter, as if waiting for him to ask the right question. For the first time since childhood, Musashi wonders, what is the purpose of strength, if not to dominate? What is victory, if it leaves the heart empty? What is the meaning of a life spent cutting down others? The road cannot answer, but the silence encourages him to listen. Asterisk, by midday he reaches a small river. The water glistens under the sun, clear, slow, unhurried. He kneels to drink, and there he notices an old monk washing a wooden bowl. The monk's robe is faded, his posture relaxed, his face serene. He looks at Musashi with gentle curiosity. "You carry a heavy weight," the monk says. Musashi frowns. "A sword." The monk smiles. "No, your mind." Musashi is startled. He is not used to being read so easily. "Sit," the monk says, motioning to the riverbank. Musashi sits. The grass is cool beneath him. The river murmurs quietly. "You have killed many," the monk continues, "and yet you seem troubled." Musashi does not answer. "Victory," the monk says, "is a shadow. When the sun moves, the shadow moves with it. Chase it long enough, and you forget the source of the light." Musashi feels something shift inside him, a truth he had sensed but never spoken. "Where is this light?" Musashi asks. The monk cups water in his hand and lets it fall back into the river. Here, everywhere, the water does not try to win. It does not try to lose. It flows, and in flowing, it becomes strong. Musashi watches the ripples dissolve. A strange peace settles over him. When he looks up, the monk is gone. Only the river remains. Asterisk, for months, Musashi wanders, following no map, no master, no plan. He visits small temples hidden in cedar forests. He meditates with monks who speak in riddles. He listens to the wind brushing bamboo leaves. In one temple, a Zen master hands him a bowl of tea and asks, "Where does the tea end and the bowl begin?" Musashi stares at the steam rising. He does not know. The master smiles. That is a good beginning. In another temple, a monk hands him a calligraphy brush. "Paint your mind," the monk says. Musashi lifts the brush and hesitates. All his life, he has moved without thinking. Instinct, motion, reaction. But here, staring at blank paper, he feels frozen. The monk laughs softly. "To paint your mind," he says, "you must first see it." Musashi puts the brush down. The monks teach him to chop wood, carry water, sweep floors. Tasks that seem simple, but reveal the truth of presence, that every action is a mirror of the inner state. When he trains with his sword, they watch silently. He expects correction, praise, criticism, but they simply watch. One day he asks why. "Because," the oldest monk says, "your sword does not interest us, but the one who holds it, that is interesting." Musashi bows, humbled. This is the beginning of his transformation. Winter arrives. Cold winds sweep the valleys. Snow gathers on the tiled roofs of temples. Musashi retreats into the mountains, seeking solitude. He finds a cave that shelters him from the storm. There, alone, he begins training with a new intensity, not to win duels, but to study his own nature. He practices slow, deliberate movements. He listens to the sound of his breath echoing off the stone. He watches the flicker of his shadow on the cave walls. Sometimes he remains still for hours, motionless as the rock. Other times he moves like a flame, sharp and unpredictable. Days blur into weeks. Weeks blur into months. He begins to understand what Zen monks call mushin, the state of no mind, where thought dissolves and action flows effortlessly. He realizes a true swordsman does not think, he simply sees. And in seeing clearly, he moves without hesitation. One night, during deep meditation, he feels something shift, a door opening inside his consciousness. He does not reach for his sword. He does not stand. He simply breathes and realizes he is unafraid. Not of death, not of opponents, not of losing. For the first time in his life, he is simply present. When spring returns. Musashi descends from the mountain, a different man. Villagers barely recognize him. His gaze is calmer, his breath steadier, his movements softer. He carries his swords not as weapons, but as tools for self-discovery. He begins traveling with painters, potters, and poets. Men who shaped the world not through violence, but through creation. He learns to paint with bold, sweeping strokes. He sketches birds with 3 lines. He draws landscapes that feel alive with wind and mist. One day, a painter asks him, what is the difference between a stroke of the brush and a strike of the sword? Musashi answers, in both, the spirit moves before the hand. The painter smiles, you have learned well. Musashi keeps his calligraphy brush next to his sword from that day on. Both tools show him his mind. Both require clarity. Both demand presence. He begins to understand that the highest level of mastery is the same across all disciplines. Asterisk. Though he no longer seeks jewels, challenges still come. Some seek fame. Some seek revenge. Some simply want to test the legend. Musashi accepts no duel lightly. He warns them. He urges them to reconsider. But many insist. He defeats them without killing. He uses sticks instead of steel. He disarms instead of cuts. Each duel becomes a lesson. Each opponent reflects a different version of his younger self, full of pride, anger, ego. Musashi begins to see that the true battle is not against other swordsmen. It is against the self, against impatience, against arrogance, against fear. The blade teaches him. The brush teaches him. The silence teaches him. Over time, the edges inside him soften. He becomes less like a weapon, and more like water, shifting, adapting, yielding, yet unstoppable. The encounter with Takano Jutwon, summer afternoon. Musashi enters a quiet village. There he meets Takano JT, an elderly ronin known for wisdom rather than victory. JT sits beneath a cherry tree, watching petals fall. You are Musashi, he says without looking up. You have defeated many. Tell me, what have you gained? Musashi hesitates. JT picks up a fallen petal and lets it drift from his fingers. The petals fall. The old samurai says, but the tree does not know their names. Musashi feels the truth of those words, strike deeper than any blade. The old samurai continues, you have swung the sword outward. Now swing it inward. Cut away the illusions that cling to you. Cut away the need to be known. Cut away the desire to win. Cut away the self that thinks it is separate from the world. Musashi bows, deeply. This encounter becomes a turning point, like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the rest of his life. The journey toward stillness. The years continue to pass. Musashi's reputation evolves from feared warrior to wandering sage, from duelist to teacher. Students gather around him on roadsides, in temples, in fields. They ask about techniques. He teaches them about mindset. They ask about strength. He teaches them about stillness. They ask about victory. He teaches them about vision. But always, after a lesson, he walks on, never staying long, never settling. A man whose home is the road, whose companion is silence. He begins to write thoughts on scraps of paper, notes that will eventually become the foundation of his greatest work. The Book of 5 Rings. Fire, water, wind, earth, void. 5 rings. 5 states of existence. 5 paths of mastery. But that is a journey for later. For now, he is still learning, still walking, still shedding the ego like old skin. Night over the Valliers, the second chapter of Musashi's life, closes. He stands on a hill overlooking a valley washed in moonlight. The grass moves gently. Owls call from the trees. The river glows like a silver ribbon. Musashi breathes deeply, feeling the cool night enter his lungs. He has fought countless duels. He has trained until his body ached. He has wandered across provinces. He has taken life, and given life through teaching. But now he senses the truth. Everything he has experienced was only preparation. Preparation for a deeper understanding, a higher path, a subtler mastery. The mountains whisper, the river answers, the wind carries the promise of revelation. Musashi closes his eyes. The path continues. The silence expands, and somewhere in that vast stillness, the next phase of his awakening begins. Dawn approaches quietly. A thin ribbon of orange light spreads across the horizon, gently pushing the darkness away. Miyamoto Musashi stands alone on a ridge overlooking a silent valley. The night has been long, filled with thought, with stillness, with the breath of the wind as sunlight climbs the mountains. Musashi senses something shifting inside him, not a revelation, not a voice, but the faint outline of an understanding that has followed him for years. Strategy, not the strategy of war, not the strategy of duels, but the strategy of life itself. He exhales softly. This, he knows, is the next ring he must step into. The sword without thought Musashi walks down the ridge and crosses, a narrow path shaded by tall bamboo. The wind moves through the bamboo stalks like 1,000 whispering voices. He stops, listens, closes his eyes. Swish, swish, swish. In that gentle rhythm, he hears what many warriors never learn. There is a moment between sound and silence, a moment between motion and stillness, a moment between intention and action. Musashi places a hand on his sword, not to draw it, but simply to feel the weight of it against his hip. A thought emerges. The hand that reaches for the sword is already late. This is where strategy begins, not with movement, but with stillness. Not with the weapon, but with the mind behind it. He breathes deeply and repeats the silent lesson. A true warrior sees the strike before it exists. He hears the motion before it begins. He senses the opening before it appears. The goal is not to react, but to recognize, not to respond, but to perceive. Musashi opens his eyes. The bamboo sways in the wind like tall green waves. The lesson lingers. The village of two. Master Musashi continues walking until midday, when he arrives at a small village nestled between rice fields. The villagers bow politely. Some whisper his name. Many know him only through rumor, through tales of duels and impossible victories. But Musashi has come not for praise, and not for combat, but to learn. The village hosts two aging masters, one a strategist, the other a scholar of perception. Musashi seeks both. The strategist is a man in his 70s. Thin, quiet eyes, like sharpened ink lines. He studies the flow of people in the street, the flight of birds, the shift of weather. When Musashi greets him, the old man nods but does not bow. "You are Musashi," he says, "one who wins by motion. But tell me, have you learned to win by stillness?" Musashi frowns. What does stillness win? The old man smiles faintly. "Everything," he says, "because stillness does not compete." He leads Musashi to a table with stones arranged on a wooden board. Not for the game of Go, but a diagram of a battlefield. The strategist places one stone. Musashi observes. Then the strategist places a second stone far away from the first. Musashi tilts his head. What does this position mean? The old man taps the second stone lightly. This stone is not attacking, he says. It is not defending. It is simply there. But because it is there, the enemy must think about it. His mind becomes divided. His balance shifts. His timing breaks. He looks up at Musashi. In a duel, he says, "The sword is not your weapon." The opponent's mind is Musashi feels a wave of clarity wash over him. The old man continues, "When you face a man, do not observe only his stance. Observe the emptiness behind his stance. Where is he uncertain? Where is he afraid? Where is he blind?" He gathers the stones. Strategy is the art of seeing what others do not see, he says, and making them move to the rhythm you choose. Musashi bows deeply. Another door inside him opens. The scholar of perception, the second master, is entirely different, blind, old, dressed in simple robes. He sits on the porch of a worn-out house, carving wood with slow, deliberate strokes. Musashi approaches quietly. The old man stops carving. "Your footsteps are too heavy," he says. Musashi narrows his eyes. "You can hear them." The old man laughs. "I can hear your hesitation before your foot touches the ground." He motions for Musashi to sit. "Tell me," the scholar says, "what do you see around you?" Musashi looks around. Fields, houses, mountains, trees. The scholar tilts his head. "No," he says. "You see labels, not reality." Musashi sits silently. The old man continues. "You see a tree, but do you see the direction of the wind on its leaves? Do you see the age in its trunk? Do you see the weight of the bird resting on its branch? Do you see the shadow it casts?" He taps his wooden cane lightly. "Vision is not in the eyes," he says. "It is in the attention. Perception is the blade behind the blade." He leans toward Musashi. "If your mind is full, you cannot perceive. If your mind is empty, the world enters effortlessly." Musashi remembers his months in the mountain cave, the long hours of silence, the breath echoing off the stone walls, the shadows moving with the light. He realizes now, those were lessons in perception, not isolation. The scholar lifts his face toward the wind. "Strategy begins with awareness," he says, "but mastery begins with emptiness." Musashi bows, again, slower than before. "To masters, two teachings, one truth. The mind decides victory long before the sword moves." The storm lessened that night. A violent storm breaks over the village. Thunder rolls through the mountains. Rain crashes against rooftops. Wind bends bamboo stalks like bowstrings. Musashi sits under the porch of an old temple. Watching the storm, lightning illuminates the sky. A tree splits. A branch falls. Water surges through the streets. The world moves in fierce, chaotic motion, and yet he remains still. In the roar of the storm, he hears something familiar. The world is always moving. The only place stillness can exist is within you. He closes his eyes. Thunder, rain, wind, footsteps, voices, water, silence. The storm becomes a teacher. When the rain finally softens, Musashi whispers to himself, "There is timing in the strike. There is timing in the breath. There is timing in the stillness before the strike. And there is timing in the world itself." A new layer of understanding begins forming, one he will later write in the Book of Water. The practice of timing the next morning. Musashi rises before the sun. He walks to a clearing beyond the village. His swords remain sheathed. He lifts his hand, moves it forward slowly, then stops. He waits, breathes, then moves again. Not practicing swordplay, not practicing combat, but practicing timing. He shifts weight between feet. He closes his eyes to listen. He opens them to observe. Step, pause, breath, silence, step. The rhythm is not physical. It is internal. At one point, an early bird rises from the grass. Musashi tracks its motion, not with his eyes, but with his awareness. There is a moment before the bird moves. A moment so subtle most men would never notice. Musashi notices, and he realizes, to win a duel, one must enter the weakness that arrives before motion, the hesitation before the thought, the breath before the strike. Timing is not speed. Timing is recognition. The philosophy of distance around midday. Musashi sits by a riverbank. Using a stick to draw lines in the dirt, he draws two. Figures to warriors. He draws space between them. Distance, he draws their stances. He marks where their feet touch the earth, but then he draws something new. A line between their minds. The distance between bodies, he whispers to himself, is less important than the distance between minds. If the opponent's mind is calm, the duel is long. If the opponent's mind is confused, the duel is short. If the opponent's mind is unsettled, the duel is predetermined. In this, he finds a new truth. A duel does not begin when swords are drawn. It begins when two minds first perceive each other. He feels the insight anchor itself within him. This is strategy, not physical, not technical, but perceptual. The three openings as evening falls. Musashi returns to the hut where he is staying. He sits cross-legged. The light of an oil lamp flickers softly. He begins to write with a brush on rough paper. There are three weaknesses in any opponent. The weakness of the mind, the weakness of the body, the weakness of the spirit. When the mind is unsettled, timing breaks. When the body is tired, form collapses. When the spirit wavers, the will to fight dissolves. He writes slowly, deliberately. He knows now that a warrior who seeks only technical victory will remain trapped in technical limitations. But a warrior who understands mind, timing, perception, and emptiness can overcome opponents of any style, any school, any rank. He is forging a new kind of strength. Quiet, internal, unseen dot. A strength not measured in kills, but in clarity. Not measured in speed, but in calm. Not measured in dominance, but in presence. The fire at dusk that night. The villagers gather around a small fire. Musashi stands at the edge of the circle, watching the flames rise and fall. A child asks him, "Master, what is the strongest sword?" Musashi looks at the fire. The flames shift, flicker, change shape. "The strongest sword," he says softly, "is the one you do not need to draw." The villagers fall silent. Musashi continues, "A warrior seeks victory. A master seeks clarity. When the mind is clear, no enemy can defeat you. When the heart is steady, no battle can shake you." He looks into the fire, orange embers glowing like tiny suns. He feels the truth settle within him. Strategy is not the art of killing. It is the art of understanding, and understanding leads to stillness. The road calls again the next morning. Musashi gathers his few belongings. The villagers thank him. Some try to give him gifts, food, coins, cloth. He declines politely. "I must keep walking," he says. "Where will you go?" they ask. He looks to the mountains, where the clouds drift like slow white ships. "Wherever the path leads," he replies, "there is still much to learn." He bows, turns, and walks away. His shadow stretches across the dirt road. The air is cool. Birdsong fills the trees. Every step carries him deeper into the art of strategy, the unseen dance between motion and silence, certainty and doubt, presence and emptiness. He does not know what awaits him, but he knows the path forward is not outward, it is inward.